Please stand. Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction, which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Please remain standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good. How you doing?
I thought about that.
The clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Samaras.
Here.
Counselor Belanger.
Here.
Counselor Elliott.
Here.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yeah.
Counselor Leahy. Counselor Leary.
Here.
Counselor Mercia.
Here.
Counselor Milanazzo.
Here.
Counselor Rourke.
Here.
8 present.
Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in darkened chamber for William A. Merrill, a lifelong resident of Lowell. He was the beloved husband of Catherine Merrill, with whom he recently celebrated his 51st wedding anniversary on November 20th, 2016. Bill was a communicant of St. Rita's Church. Bill attended Lowell schools and was a graduate of Lowell High School class of 1958. He went on to receive his BS and Master's in Education from Salem University. In addition, he received a Certificate of Advanced Education, CAGS, from Boston University in 1971. He was employed at Lowell High School for 40 years as a history teacher and later as a guidance counselor. In his early years, he worked for the Lowell National Historic Park seasonally as a tour guide, a job he thoroughly enjoyed. Bill held membership in several church, civic, and educational organizations. Prior to his illness, he served on the board of directors of the Lowell Collegiate Charter School. He was also a former election commissioner with the city of Lowell. Besides his wife, Catherine, he is survived by his 2 sons, Scott and Jonathan, his 3 grandchildren, Kaylee, Connor, and Rebecca. We offer our sympathy to his family, relatives, and many friends. He will be truly missed. Thank you.
Thank you. First order of business, the acceptance of the minutes for Parks and Recreation Subcommittee on March 21st and the City Council meeting on March 21st. Chair would entertain a motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Rourke, seconded by Councilor Samaras. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next, under communications from the city manager, we have items A through E. Item A is the stone building on the corner of Rock and Mount Vernon Street. Any discussion on item A? Hearing none, we'll move on to item B, which is a special event permit approval process. Councilor Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I think we have somebody in the audience that'd like to speak on this, please.
Good evening. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Al Saber. I'm a Pawtuckaville resident on Dunbar Avenue. I just had a question, and I'm not quite sure who it gets directed to, but in looking at the instructions for allowances for that special permit, has it always been the amplification portion of that? Has that always been a midnight cutoff, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday? Because I was almost positive that in years past it was either at 10 or 11 o'clock. Maybe not Saturday night, but I noticed going through it. I'm not sure if that's
Okay. Mr. Manager.
Mr. Marchand, could you just explain, I believe the city ordinance calls for those hours as far as noise or amplification?
Right, I think there is a difference. I'd have to double check that. It's through the License Commission, so it's an amplification permit. I believe on weeknights it's a little bit earlier, but we can find out and get back with the specific times.
I believe it's Sunday through Wednesday, 10 PM, but Thursday through Saturday till midnight. But we are looking into that because this issue came up a couple of weeks ago, and we are looking into that ordinance and whether some revisions should be made to it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Any further discussion? Council Mercy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is quite lengthy, but I really appreciate all the work that went in here by Henry Marchand. It's very informative, and every now and then I do get asked about who do I see to pull a permit for this, do I need a permit for this or whatever. So this, I'll be referring to this if I don't lose it. But thank you, this is very good. Thank you, Henry. Yeah.
Council Samarston, Council Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. No, this is a very good report, and it's a complete report. Just a couple of suggestions. Is it possible to put this in some of the major languages? Because many of the different groups, ethnic groups, do use the permitting process, and just to ensure that they have a better understanding. That's just one request. Also, I'm pleased to see where you speak of notifying neighborhood services regarding the various events, so neighborhood services can, bring it up if there's a program in that neighborhood. But could you also include actually sending an agenda out to the various neighborhood groups so they can be aware of what's going on in the city? It would serve two purposes: to ensure that they know what's going on in different neighborhoods, if it's another neighborhood, and also it can act as a way of getting the message out as to what programs are going on in the downtown. But it's a good report. I think it's a complete report. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, thank you, Mr. Manager, for taking the time to go through on this motion. I had filed it not too long ago relative to just letting residents know, and I think in particular Pawtuckettville, where the Yeoman Share these events go on, what is going on any particular weekend, and it's not that anybody opposes them, it's just notification and in some case preparation. As you noted in your memo, certainly the Bay State Marathon provides plenty of notice, but I think it's also just helpful to know when there are crew races. That is a major draw. It's good for the city, but it does provide some traffic issues and somewhat of an impediment to neighbors. So my thought was we have so many events, and that's a good thing. So I really didn't expect some cities, including the city of Haverhill, they bring every permit before the city council, and I don't want to bog it down, but knowing that there is a process that we can get the word out and provide some accountability, if you will. Some of these groups, as you know, and you've addressed them, and I appreciate it, the neighborhood appreciate it. They get their permit year in, year out, and they violate particularly the noise ordinance or trash, and we're getting better at it, but I think it's important that we notify neighborhoods, not just Pawtuckettville, of big events and small events that are taking place, so they know in advance. And so I don't want to beat this to death, but I think it's important, and I think this is a good plan moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? If not, we'll move on to item C, the naming rights of city-owned parcels. Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank the administration for a kindly response to this matter, where it's a motion I made, I think back in December, where for the city to look at of naming rights such as Colley Stadium, Lalatcha Park, to increase revenue for parks, for maintenance and upkeep and whatnot. As we know, things are tight, and this would be very beneficial financially to these open spaces, and many cities and towns are doing this. So, Mr. Manager, thank you for investigating this and looking into it, and it seems like we've got some good news from the law department. They feel that we do have the authorization to award naming rights to city-owned parcels. It's more or less an extension of what we've already do. You'll see very often Little League field sponsorships and signs for dugouts and along fences and stuff like that, so it's more or less a larger extension of something we're already doing. So that is great news. I want to thank Madam Solicitor Christine O'Connor for her work and her department. Thank you very much. But, Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager, so, Mr. Manager, it seems like we're good to go, so what are you doing to take this next step to make this a reality, I guess?
Mr. Lamont has been working on this as far as spotting the different places to have proposed advertising. And next Wednesday, we're going to be meeting with the purchasing agent, Mr. Vaughn, to finalize a request for proposals that we will send out soliciting advertising for different spots. Just imagine like the scoreboard at Alumni Field with a company name at the bottom of it, and that would pay to maintain the scoreboard because it's in bad shape right now. Or along the fences, a name of a local company. So it's not going to be gaudy. It'll be tasteful, and we want to take that money and put it back into the facility to make it better for the residents of Lowell to enjoy the sporting facilities.
That's great, Mr. Mayor. That's most certainly the spirit of my motion, the upkeep on parks and open spaces. That's great news. And as the point you made, sponsorships can be tastefully done, and I'm sure you will see too that happens. So I think this is great news. We're on our way to increasing revenue for parks and maintenance and upkeeping them and perhaps some upgrades as the years go by as well. So I think this is great news, Mr. Manager, and I'll look forward to your meeting update, how that goes, and how soon this comes into fruition. This is great news. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on the naming rights of city-owned parcels? If not, we'll move on to item D, which is the Business Improvement District in the downtown area. Any discussion, Councilor Leary?
No, thank you for the report. I guess the question I had, the obvious, why are we waiting what was the reason why everybody wanted to wait until 2018? I mean, it seems like an excellent idea. You're looking for innovative ways to really generate, income and improvement of their businesses. Why? Well, what was the stumbling block, I think?
Mr. Manager.
And is there anything that we could do on our end to alleviate that?
Can you explain why they chose to delay till the spring of 2018?
Yes, Mr. Manager. My name's Tom Lamont. I'm the new Economic Development Assistant for the DPD. So for a business improvement district, it has to go through a petition process. It's 60% of the property owners and 51% of the property assets. At this point in time right now, we did not believe we had 60%, so the city and the private sector decided not to move forward at this time. If the private sector does decide to move forward at a later time, DPD will be there to assist in any way.
So I guess there wasn't any interest, I guess, at the end of the day, or there wasn't the proper percentage interest is the best way of.
Right, it's we need 60%. At this point in time, we didn't think we could get the 60%, so we decided to put it on hold and try it again in the spring.
All right, is there anything that we could do on our end to start that up again? Because it seems like it's been used in a lot of different communities pretty effectively, and it actually, what's the disincentive? Because it's a fee structure that it.
Right. Exactly. It's like a condo fee.
Yeah.
And you would pay that based upon the assessed value of your property, and it would go into a pool that would do, put flowers up, take care of.
No, I get the whole premise, but so that's the reason why you couldn't get 60%.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know, Mr. Mayor, this is something that you've led the charge on for a number of years now, and congratulations to you. But this is more or less, I guess, a little step back. Mr. Mayor, through you to Tom again now. Tom, is this time going to be used wisely for outreach? Are we going to be continuing to reach out and to landlords, maybe individually? I mean, we've got a year or so to do it, to maybe bring them in individually, have a phone conversation, the benefits of this. I don't pretend it's going to be easy. This is something that I think would be great for the downtown. But however, what's the reality is here that the commercial rate is double the residential rate, and commercial owners are well aware of that, and they always claim they have a higher rate, so this is not going to be easy. But so, Mr. Mayor, through you to Tom, are we going to be doing outreach and explanation to property owners of the benefits that will have to the downtown as a whole?
Absolutely. The Economic Development Office, the whole team, we meet with business owners on a daily basis, and we do bring up the bid just about every time we meet up with the downtown business owners.
Okay, as long as you continue on that path, I think this may stand a shock. 'Cause I think it'd be very beneficial. Again, it's no easy task, but, okay, Tom, good luck, and please keep this council updated as how you progress. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Council. Councilor Samaras.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. Thank you for this report. It's a good report. Quite often, I think we find, Mr. Manager, that good ideas cost money, and this is an example of a good idea that does cost money. But two things, perhaps we could set up, I know how difficult it has to be for the DPD to set up meetings with the various groups, because they all have their own lives to live, and it's hard to getting everybody at a meeting. But do you think if you establish a meeting with your administration, members of the city council, and the groups that have espoused the support for the bid, perhaps we can, if we, in other words, we just increase the importance of the meeting to talk about some of the issues in the downtown, which would also include the bid. Perhaps that would help. I think I'd like to see something like that. Also, I know a lot of good ideas have been discussed as to what the bid could mean to the city, or what things that they could do to attract business in the downtown. Could that information be provided to us in such a way that we could then decide whether we want to put this into a subcommittee meeting or some other form to help this process along? If they don't want it, they don't want it, but I think we've got to give it the best effort possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on this item? If not, we'll move on to item E, which is the debt exclusion process relating to the Lowell High School project. We have a registered speaker on this item.
Armin Hebert.
Armin Hebert, 499 Wilder Street. Just like to congratulate Connor and his staff. What a great report you put out here. It's very, very thorough, very precise. But the only thing I'd like to know is this report, maybe one of the councilors can ask, because I can't, is this report going to be done he used base numbers that were given out by Skanska originally? I'm just wondering, before the final vote for the final preference, if this report will be redone again with the new numbers, because the numbers are going to change, most likely. And I'd just like to congratulate, I mean, you've always done a fine job every time I've seen you here. Connor, you and your staff do a great job, and I just want to commend you on that. And I'd just like to know if this report will be available before the final vote is in, because the numbers will be changing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Leary?
No, thank you, Connor, through you to Connor Baldwin. Excellent report. I know the mayor, you've been speaking about this as well in terms of, once you pick a location, the challenging part is how do you finance it? The good things here is that because we kept taxes low, ultimately your excess levy capacity is significant. So you can do that without going through a debt exclusion. What I like to do is make a motion to refer this to the finance subcommittee, because there is a lot of questions here, and I'm sure a lot of other folks would want to go through it. I have some questions myself, but I am very impressed with the data. I think it's an excellent start to begin having that deliberation. So I make that as a form of a motion to refer to the finance subcommittee.
Okay, so we have a motion to refer item E to the finance subcommittee, seconded by Councilor Milanazzo. On the motion, Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad that we're referring this to the Finance Subcommittee. However, this gentleman asked a question, would the numbers change? Do we have an answer? We're going to get another report after they come back?
If the numbers change, we'll obviously give an updated report.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Milanazzo.
Thank you. Later on in the agenda, we actually have an MSBA budget, a budget submission vote, which gives us the range from where we are relative to option 1 through 4. My question, to follow up on Councilor Leary's question or comment regarding the debt levy or the levy capacity, do we actually have to increase the levy capacity before we can do a debt exclusion, or can we do the debt exclusion even though we're $16 million below the levy capacity?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we could absorb the entire amount of any of the 4 options from within the existing levy. If the council chose to do a debt exclusion, it would just exclude the amount of the debt service for whichever the option is, which would be taken out of the levy and would go back in at the end of the life of the bond, 30 years or so.
30 years, okay. Could you, in preparation for the Finance Subcommittee, prepare for the subcommittee the debt service that's going to run off between now and FY 2020? Because it appears that 2020 will be the year that the debt service will kick in on the high school project. So it'd be interesting to see what actually runs off during those really 3 fiscal years. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Samaras.
Thank you. Thank you for this report. It's a very good report. And it's correct, it should go before the subcommittee. But through you, Mr. Manager, to Mr. Connors, could you talk, I mean, many of our constituents are looking at this, and they don't have this report in front of them, but it talks about debt exclusion, and it talks about excess levy capacity. But you also, in that paragraph, mention about the financial flexibility that we have in this city to whether we go for a debt exclusion or use another means to raise the funds. Could you just sort of give an overview of those two, of the terms? Just so when people are listening to us, I think it's quite impressive what they hear, but the thing is I want to make sure that they understand what they hear.
Thank you, Counselor. The key points in the report have to do with the levy, which is the total amount of taxes collected throughout all of the properties in the city, and the levy limit, which is a function of the Proposition 2.5 law in Massachusetts. And excess levy capacity is the difference between those two numbers. So in Lowell, if a community raises taxes by 2.5% each year, the levy limit increases accordingly. If you tax below the 2.5% in any one year, you build up an amount of money known as excess levy capacity, which is essentially taxes, the amount of taxes that could be taxed but are not in any particular year. And those accumulate from year to year. So because the city of Lowell has historically kept taxes low, this amount of excess levy capacity has been built, which is $16.6 million. In most communities, most members of the public may be familiar with the Proposition 2.5 override in communities, maybe some of the smaller towns around Lowell, and that's because those communities are at their limit. They're not allowed to tax in excess of the 2.5% for a capital project, so they need the debt exclusion to be able to do that. Lowell would not need that debt exclusion. It could absorb whatever the debt service is for the high school from within the existing budget because of that excess levy capacity.
And when you do that, do you have a better means of, we'll say, interest rates and what have you?
It wouldn't necessarily affect the interest rate. It would, however, allow the city to incrementally build up the increase, so there wouldn't be sticker shock, so to speak. Because if debt exclusion were passed, the tax increase would take place immediately after the city council or the public approved the debt exclusion. If it were not a debt exclusion were not the approach, the council would have the opportunity to incrementally increase the levy to absorb the debt service for the capital project.
Thank you for that report. I think it's important that our constituents realize that the money management has been done very well here in this city, and it's allowed us to take on a project such as this. So, I mean, it's important. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Malinazzo.
Thank you, Mr. If I could just follow up on some of what our CFO indicated. The debt service costs, just by option breakdown, just so the viewing audience can get a better picture. The debt service for option 1, which is the full renovation, is $7.49 million. The debt service for option 2, which is the addition and reno option, is $8.72 million. Option 3, which is addition reno, which does include the eminent domain portion, is $8.13 million, and the Colley site is $9.54 million in annual debt service. So those are the numbers projected based upon what we have to date. So I thought it was important to get that out.
Thank you. Councilor Leary?
No, just to echo off, just with basically $16.5 million capacity, that's, what does $1 million equal in terms of a percent increase in taxes?
For fiscal 17, every 1% of the levy is $1.24 million.
Okay, so you're really, over time, building up that capacity. We have a lot of flexibility. where other towns, neighboring towns don't have that flexibility. So we can do it a variety of different ways. And the report that you provided off my motion is excellent. I think it gives us now a chance to actually take a step back, look at what's financially more advantageous with any of the options when we make the final decision. So not only this administration, but multiple administrations have done a very, nimble job of keeping things available. So when you have issues like a high school or potentially down the road a police station or what have you, we now have options as opposed to, here's what we have to do. We have to go to a 2.5 override. It doesn't alleviate what you're paying at the end of the day, but it does give you options to be doing things in a more thoughtful, intelligent way that hopefully will provide that flexibility. And I think some of the things that we'll be speaking about in the Finance Subcommittee, I know what Somerville did, and one of the things that the mayor has mentioned, Somerville actually structured their debt a little differently when they did their debt exclusion. I guess they middle loaded the actual exposure. So they paid the interest only for the first 5 or 10 years, and potentially that might have been better for that community. So now we have a chance to take a look at that. I know we get all absorbed with location, 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 but at the end of the day, we now really have a really good opportunity to do this in a way that, yes, it's going to cost you some money and a lot of money, but we're going to do it in the best way possible for the taxpayer. So it's actually exciting. I think the report is a good start to what we'll be discussing. I think what Councilor Malinalzo and Mr. Hebert said earlier about the options, we still have plenty of time to review the options. We really don't know what the final prices are, but we do have a good outline in terms of what this is going to cost the city. And I will add, and I'll kind of end with this, the high school really desperately needs to be replaced, whether it's downtown or it's at Cawley. It probably should have been replaced 10 or 15 years ago. And so waiting to do this at this point is not a comfort. It's something that we have to do to remain competitive with students staying in the city and ultimately the middle-class taxpayer that stays in the city. That's that imperative at this point. But I am impressed with the report, and I'm impressed with the effort thus far. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott.
Well, I do know this, I supported going to the Finance Subcommittee for sure. And I do think this is an eye-opener. I think it's good information. We're starting to quantify the effects of, or the impact, if you will, on of all these options. And I have to break things down for myself in simple terms. I mean, debt service and levy limit. But just for the people at home, on an average basis, we increase the available spending that we can under the law by usually less than 2.5%. That's the law. Last year, we raised the levy. Was it $2 million, Mr. Manager, Mr. Connor, or was it a little bit? So it was 1.5%. So it was around a couple of million.
About 1.8 million.
1.8 million.
Right.
So just by way of comparison, on an annual basis, we usually raise it about 1.5%, which is why why we have some excess capacity. These options ask us to raise in one given year. The annual debt service is $7.5 million for the first option, 8.7 for the second, 8.1 for option 3, and then 9.4 million on an annual basis for 30 years. So that puts it into perspective, I think, for the folks at home, the impact of it and why we're having this discussion, and personally why I think that we should give the opportunity for people to weigh in on it. And what is also important in this report is what I would say is the bell curve, the median numbers, the median income, median home value in the city. So between 250,000 and 350,000, we have the majority of homeowners. It's 10,000, a little over 10,000 homeowners. And then in the next category, between 350 and 450, there's another 5,000. So between those two valuation brackets, 250 to 450, that's the majority of the homeowners in the city. And taxes, depending upon what option you look at, will go up between $300 and $500 at a minimum. So I think we need to have a full discussion on this. Particularly, I know there's a motion later by Councilor Belanger, and we have received information on a motion that had made a capital plan you know, what are our operating costs, what are our capital plan, and how does this all fit in together, and what's the impact? I think what would also be important, Mr. Manager, would be the impact that this has on businesses too, because we want businesses to come in, they offset the taxes to homeowners, and we need to continue to have them come in. And education is one of the reasons why businesses and people will come to the city, so I just think that's an important, you know, variable as we move forward in this discussion. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And one small point I'd like to make for clarification, Mr. Mayor, through you to Connor Baldwin. Now, Connor, if it's my understanding, a debt exclusion only lasts, the additional taxes only last to the life of the loan, and it goes back to the regular rate, where, on the other hand, if we absorb it through the levy, that tax rate stays permanent. Is that accurate?
That's correct, Counselor.
Okay. But in this case, it's a 30-year loan, so the tax levy would be, so, I mean, it's not permanent, but it's still a lengthy amount of time. I just think that bears mentioning, okay? Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? If not, the chair would entertain a motion to accept and place on file all of the city manager's responses to city council motions. We have a motion to that effect by Councilor Milonazo, seconded by Councilor Mercia. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next, we have, if there's no objection, if we could take 3.4 out of order, that's a communication to appoint, hearing no objection, it's a communication to appoint James A. Peters, Jonathan M. Gear, and Andrew W.J. Collard to the Sustainability Council. Do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
Motion to approve, second by Council Leahy. Discussion. Roll call.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes?
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Leary.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Mr. Gear's here, I guess.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Councilors, Mr. Manager. Thank you very much for the opportunity to serve on the Lowell Sustainability Council. I appreciate your support, and I hope we can do some great things in the council. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't think Mr. Peters is here. I don't know if Mr. Kohler is here. Okay. Okay, so if we'll return to the agenda, and we have a communication regarding the Article 97 at Colley Stadium. Chair would entertain a motion to accept and place on file by Council Rourke, seconded by Council Mercia. We have a registered speaker. Do you want to speak first?
I just have a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the city manager. In this report, it says that we have to replicate 5 parks, and I understand that. But could it be possible, sometimes we had a previous issue with naming rights, so could it be possible for the state EEA to consider and count open space field as having been done by the city if an entity decides to offer their services as a partnership to help with the construction of a new field? Do you think that we could look into that and see if EEA would accept that, or have we already done that? Did we already do that?
We're in the process of doing that right now. As a matter of fact, we had a very positive conversation with EEA today. We're going to be meeting with them here in Lowell Monday morning to go over all of these issues, visit the sites, and they've already conceded two fields to us. Rather than having to replicate 5, we're down to 3 because they're going to accept the 2 that we propose in the existing parking lot as fields. So we're down to 3. We're going to try and whittle that down even further on next Monday.
And see if you can whittle it down even further with the suggestion that I'm making, because there could be partnerships out there that are willing to go partners with the city, contingent upon them getting first shot at the field. So thank you.
The city manager, but we also have item 4.1. Do you want to join them together and take them up all at once? If there's no
So
objection,
move.
we'll do that. We have a motion to do that. Hearing no objection, by general consent, we'll take both of those together. Okay, so
Do
we
you have a speaker?
Yeah, we have registered speakers, but
So-
if I could just read the communication. which is approving the filing of special legislation which authorizes the use of certain parcels of land as described more particularly below, which currently contain public fields, athletic facilities, and facilities pertaining thereto for the purpose of constructing a new high school and for other school-related and incidental purposes thereto. Councilor Elliott.
I just want to follow up, Mr. Mayor, on the question or the response that you provided, Mr. Manager, and that was on the replication of parks. So I do recall it was 2 Mondays ago when we met with EOEEA in Boston. One of the questions raised was, could we acquire land in Tewksbury? Should that be an option? And could that be considered replication? And the answer was sort of similar. I thought it was, it was dismissed that no, you don't own it, that you can't own land in another community. But my question is, well, that lacrosse field hockey field, most of that is in Tewksbury. And so if we can't count land if we were to get it, do we have to replicate that field? Is that one of them that they're requiring, or is that one that has been taken out of the equation?
Well, it's interesting because you're right. Some of that land is in Tewksbury, but also like Manning Field that we call, that's part of that, or the most part of that is in Chelmsford. So we'll talk to them about that on Monday and try and clear up why they assert that.
I mean, I believe that we should be anyway, but if there's an option, they seem to similarly just dismiss that we could not get land in Tewksbury and even replicate land that we could possibly be losing in Tewksbury. I mean, most of that field is in, most of that parcel is in the town of Tewksbury. So I know it's complex, but when we're really starting to sharpen our pencils and you say, well, if we can get land in Tewksbury and use land that's being replicated in Tewksbury, why couldn't that work? So, okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. With this, we have registered speakers to, but Councilor.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions first before we get to the speaker, if possible. So, Mr. Manager, when I asked this last week for all the information, all the documents concerning the Article 97 restrictions, is the way you gave it to us, is that it? Everything that the city has, the state has, and so forth?
Through the mayor, the documentation that was provided in this response are those documents that the city has found that directly relate to grant improvements on property outside of Cawley Stadium itself. So this documentation that was provided indicates what grant money was provided to the city, or supposedly provided to the city, that went to improve fields other than Cawley Stadium.
Where's that? I'm looking at the only contract I see between the state and the city concerns just the visitors' bleachers and the track around Cawley Stadium.
If I may direct attention to the first page, renovation Cawley Stadium Phase 2. If you'll note, the second page, designated L3.1, it notes that the integrated field hockey field is noted in the plan as work that's performed. Additionally, if you look at the previous map, A1.0, on that map, it indicates those areas where work was not, or it indicates which work was performed and not performed. If you look at the plan, it indicates that on all of these surrounding fields for Cawley Stadium, no work is indicated there. The only field which indicates that work has been performed or will be performed is the field hockey field.
Okay. So I'm looking at the only project agreement that was given to us, the only thing that has both the state and the city, which is the Urban Self-Help Program Agreement, right? That's the participant and the commission of the Commonwealth. That I'm looking at, USH number 3, Cawley Stadium 3. That's what I'm looking at here, that the manager provided for us. It states the project shall consist of design and renovation of the visitors' bleachers and the permanent track at Cawley Stadium Complex. That's signed by, at the time, the manager, the secretary of the EOEA, and then the Parks Commission.
Yes,
Correct?
that's correct.
Okay. So where's that agreement that states anywhere else other than the bleachers and the permanent track?
Within the packet, there is an application dated June 1st, 1998.
That's just the application for the city, correct?
That is correct, and that was the application for this grant. And within that application, there is documentation indicating that as part of this grant, funds will go towards the field hockey field. There are a few references.
Okay, but there's no agreement in place, it's just the application, correct? And then also, I mean, this is for, Mr. Manager, in your response, it does say 22.35 acres. Was that just word of mouth by the state saying you have to replicate that, or is there any official paperwork, or is there an official document from the state or from the EO stating that you have to replicate 22 point, I mean, I see it in your motion response, I get that. But where is this official, paperwork documentation from the state that says this?
I agree with you 100%, and I think that shows in that report, and that's one of the reasons that we're going to be meeting with them Monday, because we don't necessarily agree with their interpretation of what has to be replicated. Like I said earlier, we've already gotten them down to 3 from 5, because we were able to convince them that that parking lot should suffice for replication. So I concur with you, and we continue to have that discussion with EEA to try and to clear up what is confusing at best.
Now, in your former life as a state rep and as an attorney, I mean, you would look at this, and I'm sure you would question, where does 22 acres come from?
And I agree with you, and in my current life too, we're questioning it, and we're going to be doing that on Monday.
Okay, so is that in response to you have in your response it says, pursuant to the current state of law, absent any recordings of Article 97, such protections do not run with the land?
That I think is our weakest argument, because if you look at the grant application, it said it was the city's responsibility to record that restriction back in 1994. So, we are keeping that, but I think it's probably one of our weaker ones. I think our arguments that money wasn't used for all of the fields is a better argument to pursue.
Right. So then, the only money that we have here recorded is $474,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
So where did the 1.4 come from?
That's a figure they came up with.
Who's they?
Well, the EEO. I always have
Right,
too
I
many
understand.
vowels on it.
So when they say 1.4 million, Mr. Manager,
Yeah.
and when you say, where's the proof of that? They say,
They don't have, yeah, that's,
So
but
where-
that's what we're going to be talking about Monday morning also. We just, conference calls haven't been as productive as face-to-face conversations will be, and that's why we're doing it Monday, and all of these issues will be coming up.
okay, so officially, the only agreement that the city of Lowell has and the state of Massachusetts has just deals with 2 things, just the visitors' bleachers and just the permanent tracker on the field. Is that correct?
To my understanding, that's correct. Everything I've seen.
Okay, and absent any other documentation from the state, from the solicitor's office, anything else whatsoever, that number of 22.35 acres or $1.4 million, that came from, the land of make-believe. I'm not being a wise guy, I'm just saying, when people...
No, what that figure came from, if you were to take the land mass of the parking lot out front and where all of these 5 fields are currently located, that equals 22.35 acres.
Yeah, I get that, and I guess the hard time I'm having is that, again, it's only two things, right? So why do they relieve you of the restrictions for the parking lot?
They didn't relieve us of the restrictions, they just said that we could use those 2 new fields as part of our 5-field replication obligation.
So how many acres are we down to now to replicate?
Well, we still have to replicate the 22.35 of open space, but we're down to the amount of acreage we have to replicate for fields.
So what was that number? Do we know how? I know it's hard, I know it's on the spot, but...
I'm sorry, but I don't know the exact amount, but
So basically down to 3 fields left to replicate?
Yeah.
And I would imagine in your role as manager, you still be pushing for a total, alleviation of these restrictions because there's nothing on file through the Register of Deeds, the city of Lowell, or the state of Massachusetts that has anything
Right.
other than the bleachers and other than the track.
Right, but unfortunately, EEA sets the ground rules, and we have to work with them, and that's what we're trying to do. And so far, we've met with some success after today's conversation, and I think Monday will be even more helpful.
Thank you.
If there's no further discussion, we'll take the registered speakers now.
Armin Hebert.
Good evening, councilors again. Armin Hebert, 499 Wilder Street. Okay, on the first part of that motion, reading the papers that were brought forward, those were basically applications and a proposal. I'd like to know if the work was, if the city performed their own, as it stated in the application process, that the city was acting as its own contractor. Okay, so I would think there'd be work orders to be presented to the state saying that this work order is going to be completed. The one paper that you did provide, and all that was part of the application process of what you intended on doing, not that what was done. It was what was intended on what was being done. Okay, so the city acted as its own general contractor basically here, where Brian Martin signed off on it as the general contractor for the city. Okay, so there should have been work order forms being put out there for the city to do the work. So no matter what, if the city is doing its own work, they still got to provide a work order. And then after the work is completed, there's another form that goes to the state showing that you completed the work so that you can get the grant money. The state doesn't give you the grant money and say, here, go do the work, because they ain't gonna trust you like anybody else. No person is gonna give a contractor money until the work is performed, all right? So now you get into that part where is that, the completed form? The completed work to be presented to the state. So that's the other thing. And now, where is the paperwork stating that the city received this grant money? And from what I understood, by reading that, the grant was only for $300,000. That's what it said on the grant part. So if Brian Martin was acting as a contractor for the city of Lowell, which he signed the paperwork, maybe Brian should be called in and ask these questions. Where is this missing paperwork? Someone has to have this missing paperwork. Otherwise, we don't even know if the city got the money for the grant. I don't know if the state has provided anything, but from what was provided on that motion that was brought up to get all this paperwork, there's very little paperwork here. There's no proof that the work was done. There's no proof that the paperwork was filed with the state that the work was done. And there's no proof that the state reimbursed the city for the grant money. Okay. On the next part of the motion was the other motion was last week I had stated that the feasibility study, when it got down to the final four, you had to present 4 feasible things. And Mr. Samaras graciously asked the question, because I can't ask it from the podium. He asked the question, and we were told no. Well, I went back and read the book again, and page 13, 14, 15 in their regulations, 3.3.3, this is what they say. One option has got to be repair. One option's got to be renovation. This third option's got to be an addition renovation. And the fourth option has got to be new. But there is a clause in there, and this is what maybe one of the councilors can ask the city manager. Earlier in the thing on page 4, the manager can ask for an exception where he only presents 3 forward. Now, maybe that's a good question to ask the manager. It's not up to me to ask him. But this is out of their regulations, and like everything like this proceeding here, this city council meeting, you have your regulations. So if they got regulations, I think they would hold true if it's in black and white. I'm only reciting what I'm reading, you know? So hopefully this can be cleared up. I mean, this is a very important thing for this school. I think the city needs to build this school. Whether it's a renovation, which I don't agree on because I don't think it's right to put kids in a construction zone, but whether or not we need something better than what we have over there. And, you know, just to make one statement, I'll tell you, I work in storage all day, I work in drainage, I work construction. I go home at night, I take a shower, I feel clean, I can hug my grandchildren. My kids are too old, they'd whack me. But you know what? I can hug my grandchildren knowing that I'm clean. I see a lot of people that may go home at night right now, and even if they take a shower, they still smell like storage. Thank you.
Eric Nelson.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Eric Nelson. I reside at 208 Fairmount Street. I come before you this evening, once again, to respectfully request you vote to proceed with the homeroom petition to lift Article 97 restrictions associated with option 4 for the new Lowell High School located at College Stadium. The city needs a new high school regardless of location. Everyone loses, everyone. If the city does not have a functioning high school, and it will be the death knell of the city if we do not take advantage of this opportunity. So I want to be clear that the supporters of Citizens for Collie Group do not subscribe to a collie or bus mentality. Moreover, we will not take our ball and go home if the high school remains downtown. We will not file lawsuits if a downtown option is ultimately chosen. Now, we may not send our children to school in a construction zone, which will be heartbreaking, but that will be a personal decision many will make based on what they believe is in the best interest of their children, after carefully weighing the risks and benefits. We will not question those who make a different decision. However, if you expect the citizens of this city to respect the outcome of the process, then the process has to be legitimate. As a result, I come before you tonight to express concerns over the process as a whole. What we want at this point, what we truly only want, is an open, honest, transparent, fair process where the rules are followed and applied equally to all. Half-truths are avoided, and outright misstatements of facts, actual facts, are avoided by all. From the outset, this process has been geared to keeping the high school downtown, has assumed Belvedere residents will never support a high school at Collie, and has assumed a high school at Collie will ruin the last best neighborhood in the city. I'm here to unequivocally inform the city's leadership that we do not believe the process has been fair or that we are playing on a level playing field. There are rules of conduct as well as procedure that must be respected if you expect the outcome of this process to be respected. For example, when speaking this evening, I will only use my 5 minutes, and I won't use 8, even if you should generously provide additional time to me. We all learned about Rule 28 in Robert's Rules of Order last week. Now, while this is clearly Council Millenhouse's right, this procedural maneuver provided no context for the motion and consequently was believed by many to be just another obstacle erected by the city's leadership. In addition to Robert's Rules of Order, there is, of course, Mass General Law, Chapter 268A, which clearly defines roles public officials, elected and appointed, can and cannot play. For example, while a policy-making appointed official may be required to weigh in on issues within the scope of their authority, they can do so in their official capacity to inform and educate the public, but not advocate. Let me state again, they can educate the public on these issues, but it must be done accurately and objectively. Go figure. What am I talking about? Let me share just a few examples where I believe the process has been anything but objective and accurate. I was dismayed to read in the minutes of the most recent Friends of Lowell High minutes that the construction duration for all options is about the same, 3 to 3.5 years. This is just not true. I was left scratching my head when I read a post from supporters of the downtown group that a parking garage would cost $10 million at Collie. No one has ever mentioned building a parking garage at College Stadium. And we all know that there are not 1,200 unencumbered parking spaces at the AIC garage. Please stop using that number. My head will explode if one more person says the students will not be able to take classes at Middlesex or UML if the high school is moved to Collie. This is not factually accurate. And whoever told the outright lie that if the high school goes to Collie, the Holy Ghost Park will be taken by eminent domain should not only be ashamed of themselves, but exposed and suffer the consequences. Then there are the half-truths. When Ms. Williams was asked about the budget at the recent CBA meeting, she unequivocally stated that once the budget is set, it cannot be increased and there are no additional changes to scope. This is only half the equation and half the truth. Specifically, what if the budget is indeed reached due to change orders or unforeseen construction issues? If there's no more money, then there's only one option, and that's a reduction in scope. And any reduction in scope will be a hit to the educational plan. What are we going to cut, and who is going to make that decision? Don't think it will happen? Well, it's happened twice already downtown. First, with the construction of the Lord Building in the 80s, where a bridge was eliminated, fatal decisions were made to the HVAC system, and labs were shortchanged. Second, with the $40 million renovation in the late 90s, when $6 million in unexpected abasement costs again cut into funds allocated for labs. Isn't this the definition of insanity if we remain downtown and expect different results this time? Then there's the lack of transparency that has been rife throughout the process. I don't need to belabor Article 7, and it seems like there was some good news this evening, but I was shocked to read in the minutes of the December 1st SBC meeting that a member of that committee actually inquired whether the city could make a generous offer to owners of the professional building before the information is released to the public. Is this generous offer consistent with what is being carried in the budget? Lastly, and most recently, we were denied a Freedom of Information Act request for copies of any and all inspections and results for air quality, annual inspections, and hazard abatement at Lowell High School. I have a copy of the rejection letter if anyone wants it. This request was not made haphazardly. Nonetheless, we were informed by the Division of Development Services that they have no documents responsive to our request. What does this mean? Did they have them at some point? Who has them now? Were they moved? Who instructed they be moved? Why won't the city provide the reports? Again, there are rules to govern these interactions. State law provides it's illegal to refuse to disclose a public record or remove it from the room where it is usually kept, or alter, deface, mutilate, or destroy any public record. Rest assured, the appeal is drafted and ready to be submitted. We will keep fighting until these records are released in accordance with state law. And please don't tell me this is sour grapes. This is simply about ensuring there's a level playing field. In closing, despite my frustration with the process where half-truths, inaccuracies, and lack of transparency always seem to favor keeping the high school downtown, I respectfully ask the council to pass the homeroom position and move all 4 options forward. Let the experts do their work without an invisible hand guiding their diligence and conclusions, and let the chips fall where they may. I'm willing to advocate for Collie on the merits. Are you? Thank you very much.
Council Rourke.
Mayor Kennedy?
Can I have these? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say, I think it's maybe a good idea to just go back to the beginning of this whole process and realize why we're doing it. And the reason why we're doing it is because the last time that the high school went through the accreditation process, it was in, it was cited that the problem with accreditation was going to be the facility. And so going forward, if we don't do something with the high school, at least a rehab on that building, we would end up being the 4th largest city in the Commonwealth. We would have 1 high school, and the high school would not be accredited, which I don't think anybody in the city wants that. So if it's sometime in the future, we're going to look at a binding referendum. I think the baseline for that binding referendum has to be that we do the rehab at least. It cannot be, should we do it or do nothing? I think given that, we started into the process, and the idea was that we could get 80% reimbursement, or 79.85 reimbursement from the state, and that at the highest end, it might cost $250 million, which at that time, just a few months ago, seemed like a real lot of money. But if you were getting 200 paid by the state and you're only paying 50, then it seemed like a good deal. Since that time, we have the 4 options that have come to us, and we've found out that it isn't going to be $250 million. It's going to be $350 million, which is, to me, a lot of money, and it should be a lot of money to everybody else. And on top of that, we're not getting 80%, and I just think people should understand that. We're not getting 80% on this. If it's downtown, then the reimbursement from the Commonwealth will be somewhere between 61 and 66%. If it goes to Collie, the reimbursement's going to be 55%. And that makes the Collie option be $24 million more expensive than the downtown options. And that's without considering the additional costs, which would not be, which the state would not participate in. We have the cost for busing, which would be put into the operational budget. The city right now spends close to $8 million busing the students. They do not bus any of the high school students. If we start busing the high school students, it will be an additional $3.5 million on the operational budget. And I know that there are some people who say, well, yeah, but the school department has a plan, and that plan means that everybody is going to be able to go to school in their own neighborhoods. Well, what that plan also means, that plan would change the number of zones. We have 2 zones in the city right now. It would change the zones from 2 to 5. It's very fair to the people who live in Belvedere, it's fair to the people who live in the Highlands, and it's fair to the people that live in Pawtuckaville. It is unfair to anybody that lives in Centerville, because their options would be severely limited. And it is unfair to anybody that lives in South Lowell or the Sacred Heart, because their options would be severely limited. So, for instance, if you lived on Commonwealth Avenue or someplace in South Lowell, and your student right now, your child goes to the Pine Art School, they would not be able to go to the Pine Art School because they wouldn't be in the Pine Art School zone anymore. If you have a child, if you live on Christian Hill and your child goes to the Riley School, he wouldn't be able to go to the Riley School anymore. He would be limited to either the Greenhouse or the 2 schools that are up at Gage Field. $3.5 million that's a lot of money. That's a lot of extra money. When you add to that the infrastructure costs that we would have to spend in the Belvedere area on sidewalks, on Douglas Road and on Clark Road, possibly on streetlights, that's going to be a lot of money too. And then when you add to that the amount of money that it's going to take to redevelop the fields, that the replacement fields, if that option is approved, that's going to be a lot of money. Now, for some reason, we seem to be doing whatever we can and bending over backwards to push the Collie option, which is going to be, at the end, probably $40 to $50 million more than the downtown option. I understand that there are people who favor the Collie site, who think that the system is rigged for downtown, and I think that there are people who favor the downtown site that think that the system is rigged for Collie. I'm not sure that that means that you're doing a good job managing the whole situation, Mr. Manager, but I do think that that's kind of where we've got to. You know, we've gone through this process. We had the building committee meet, and we were told, and the building committee was told, and this council was initially told, that we needed 4 options. We needed the renovation options, and we needed to have a new school option. I'm on the building committee, and a member of the city council, and I voted for the 4 options because the only new school options that we had available to us were either the Collie site, the Wang site, or the 6-story building downtown. The cheapest of those three was going to be the Colley site. And on that basis, I voted for the Colley site. However, I do believe that maybe the building committee would not have approved the Colley site if they knew that there didn't need to be a new school option. And then we were faced with modulars. And what we were told is that option 2 and option 3 both required modular units, substantial modular units. And I've been down to Winchester High School, where they're building a new high school down there, and where they've got 32 modular units, and it all works fine. But back in Lowell, modular units, at least a few months ago, were unacceptable to most people. And then all of a sudden, option 3 didn't need any modular units, and now I've been told most recently, option 2 doesn't need any modular units. So I just feel like sometimes through this process, we've been faced with wrong information, and that information probably has changed the way people might have voted on the building committee, and maybe on the city council, maybe not. But I do have to wonder, and then all of a sudden Article 97 comes about, and it comes about sort of at the last minute. And everybody is wondering, like, well, how did this happen all of a sudden, and why didn't we know about it all of until the very end? Particularly since we knew early on that the South Common site had an Article 97 problem. So I would have thought that looking at the array of options that were available to us at that time, that once we realized that there was an Article 97 problem at the South Common, that the other sites would have been checked to see if there was a Article 97 problem there. And now it's also come to everyone's attention that there is no paperwork. But I do think that we do have the application that the law department spoke about, and I also think that somebody's got a canceled check. The city auditor should have a canceled check, so we took the money for the Article 97 agreement. And if you drive out there, you can see the improvements that were done. I mean, the softball field that we talk about that we're looking to move to Douglas Road really is a little baseball stadium. That's probably a more accurate description of it than is a softball field. But in the paper this morning, there was an article that I read that indicated that last Tuesday, the city sent down the replacement properties to the state. Is that accurate? Was that accurate? So that would be last Tuesday in the day that we sent the options down. And that would be previous to any vote by this council about whether or not they wanted to move forward with Article 97. I mean, if you recall, what happened last week is Councilor Milanazzo objected to the second reading, which just stalled that legislation for a week, that vote for a week. And we had already sent down the options, the replacement options, the additional, the replacement land.
We had sent down the open space lands that we were proposing for possible replication. That's what we sent down to them.
Right, and we did that before the council took a vote on it. So if the council had voted no, for instance, those options would have already been down there. So I guess my point is, it was already sent down there. Nobody knew that it was sent down there. I called Wednesday morning after last Tuesday's meeting and asked to see where those 6 parcels were that were being sent down. And I was told that they were still being vetted by the law department and that I wouldn't be able to get them until the end of the week. And I did get them at the end of the week, but it seems as if I could have got them earlier if the state got them on Tuesday. Is that right?
I believe I sent the information on the previous Friday, and then they were sent in on Tuesday to EEA.
Yes.
So the council has had the proposed replication fields on Friday, and then the law department sent them in on the following Tuesday.
The council said the replication fields last Friday, right? That's when they were sent. They weren't sent before then. On Tuesday, we talked about, at the meeting, although Council Milonazo objected to the second reading, there was other discussion regarding Article 97 at that time. And you mentioned at that time that there were 6 fields that you were looking at. The next morning at like 9:05, I called up and asked for a copy of those fields. And I was told that they were being vetted by the law department and that they'd be available at the end of the week. But my point is that you had already sent them the day before to the state. So if you had sent them to the state on Tuesday, why couldn't I have had them on Wednesday morning?
Because we sent them to the state to see if they agreed with us that they were fields that were applicable to serve as replication. We didn't want to give you, we were trying not to give you false fields. We were trying to give you information that had been confirmed by EEA. But they never followed up with any validation of those fields. So we sent them out so that you would at least have some idea of what fields we were talking about.
Okay. And so when Council Milonazo objected to the second reading last week, I think that was totally appropriate since the council didn't really have the information before it in order to make an educated vote last Tuesday. So basically, when you put that before the council for a vote, you were just expecting the council to kind of rubber stamp that one without being able to see the fields or where the replication. I mean, one of the ideas is up at Christian Hill, up at the reservoir. But I don't know if anybody in Centerville realizes that that's where we're thinking of putting fields, or maybe they don't care, but I suspect that some people probably do.
Not necessarily, we're not saying we're putting fields up there, we're just using that as open space to satisfy the 22.35 acres of land, but not necessarily fields there.
We've already got that as open space up there, so
it's open space, but it's never been, Des, go ahead.
That land has never been dedicated as open park space. It has a different statutory purpose or municipal purpose. And so when we contacted the state on Tuesday to give them the list of potential sites, we were expecting and hoping to be able to continue with that process quicker than what actually happened. So it really wasn't until today that we heard for the first time that those properties that we had identified and forwarded to them were in fact, according to the state, reasonable alternatives for open space. And then separate to that is the issue, obviously, of field replication.
right. But Tuesday, the council didn't know where any of those fields were. So last Tuesday, when Council Milonazo objected to the second reading, we had no information as to where those fields would be at that time. So really, the only smart move was to object to the second reading, to wait until the information came to the council. Yes, go ahead.
The only thing I would add to that is that the reality is we wouldn't have all of this information and that we're sort of moving through this process in a parallel fashion so that I think it was anticipated that whether it's last week or this week, that a vote would go forward, keeping that all in play. And at the same time, we would continue to proceed with EEA in determining, which is going to be a process that's going to take a period of time to determine both what is adequate open space and what are appropriate field replication sites.
Have we already sent the 4 options down to the MSBA? Yeah, so they have the 4 options. So the work that they're going to do between now and May 9th, they're just proceeding, right? They're not paying attention to Article 97. They're just proceeding with the work as it is. So if that's the case, what was the rush? Why is there a rush to vote on Article 97? if it's not doing anything to slow up the process? Why wouldn't we just go through, plod through it deliberately and thoughtfully, rather than to push it through?
Because if we were working on a timeline of having the council vote on May 9th for what would be the preferred option, and quite honestly, if the Colley site was still saddled with the Article 97 restrictions, it would be very difficult to deem that a preferred site.
There is something in the Article 97 policy that indicates that in order for Article 97 to be, for us to seek relief, there has to be no other options available. But we do have 3 other options downtown. So if we have the other options available, and that's part of the criteria for Article 97, how are we getting around that one? Can anybody explain that to me?
There would be no other options if the preferred site were the Colley site. So if the city were moving forward with the Colley site, then we would need relief under Article 97, if that was the preferred site. I understand your question.
Yeah.
But I believe that's the way this is approached.
That's the way you're approaching it. But do you think is that sound? I mean, it clearly says there has to be no other options available, which means no other places you can put the high school. And I understand that there's probably communities where they're in that situation, where they don't have any other place they can put the high school. But we obviously do, because we've sent 4 options down to the MSBA. So if we have other options available, then how are we addressing that part of that paragraph in the policy?
We can certainly follow up with EEA on that issue as well.
Well, hasn't that come up at all in the discussion?
It hasn't come up in a discussion that I've been involved with, no.
Okay. Just for myself, I cannot see how I can vote for the most expensive option on the table and then go to the taxpayers in the fall and say that I'm looking out for their best interest. It just doesn't, I don't think anybody would believe me. We have options available that are tens of millions of dollars cheaper than the Colley option. And I don't know how, if the...
Mr. Vice Chair, point of order. We're not discussing the vote on the option tonight. This is on Article 97.
Right.
I'm on Article 97.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
Mr. Vice Chair, point of order. This is Article 90. We're not voting on the preferred option. That's not before us tonight.
It's, Mr. Chairman, let me just say that it's what I'm expecting to do is vote against the Article 97 this evening on the vote that's been prepared for us. I just don't, I don't see it as being the best way to go. And if I could continue, Article 97, I think, is a good thing. It's not just good for Lowell, it's good for the Commonwealth. It shouldn't be seen as a roadblock. We should put a high value on fields and recreational areas in the city, a higher value than we put on them for the past couple of months. At any rate, I will be voting no on this vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Leary, Councilor Elliott, and Councilor Mercia. Councilor Leary?
What we're doing on this vote is voting to keep option 4 going forward.
I believe it's just...
That's what we're talking about. We're not getting into the debate of the finances, which I think we're going to need to, and I think what the mayor articulated, at the end of the day, why would you vote for something that's $10 or $20 million above the other option? We're not doing that tonight. What we're doing is keeping the process moving forward, and I thought it was a good thing for the city. I think the debate, if you look at it in the appropriate context of what we're trying to do, we're trying to replace the high school. This started long before the accreditation, by the way. This started with the school committee when Patrick Murphy was mayor. This started when I had a motion on the school committee and a joint motion on the city council from the mayor when he was Councilor Kennedy regarding bags that were around the water bubblers at the high school and bags that were around the toilets at the middle schools. And we took tours of 3 different schools. And we did something. We did something positive for the city by fixing things that should have been fixed a long time ago. What rose out of that, it was a motion on the school committee to take a look at all of our options, of all of our buildings, of the infrastructure and the improvement plan. And the one that came out with the most desired need was the high school. So this started a long time ago, and it really started out not because of location, it started out because of science labs, because our science labs were so poor and inadequate. And this council, not this council, but the previous council, took a vote to add basically science labs at the Greater Lowell Technical School, and rightfully so, to improve it. We're getting lost in the argument here regarding location, forgetting we need to have a new high school. We need to have it for the students that are going to go there. We need to have it for the taxpayers. I think the debate regarding the money is definitely going to come into play when we vote on the final option. I think a lot of what was said tonight is not completely true when you vet everything out. And I'll definitely be willing to debate point by point. I think it's a good thing to do that, but I think tonight what we're actually voting on is to continue the process so the option 4 can compete and stand on its own or not stand on its own when we finally make a decision to vote for whatever option we think is the best in the city. And once we vote on that, we need to get behind that option because the economics of the city really need a new high school, whether it's downtown or at Cawley. And by the way, none of those options are bad. They're all good options. We should be, the sad thing is in the city is we're land poor. It would be nicer to have other options that we could compete. Regarding the South Common option, there was a motion made, I think, by Mr. Leahy and Councilor Leahy and Councilor Belanger to keep the South Common on. I voted for it, not really in favor of that option as a potential, but that is what you want to do is have more options to compete. Regarding the busing, we have 3 zones, not 2. One of the zones is called an open zone. That's where a lot of the cost is derived from because we bus people across the city. That costs a lot of money. It's inherently challenging to change that. 5 zones was the second time I've heard that. Before, when I was on the school committee, there was 2 zones. And the 2 zones were a north and south zone. And that actually saves significant money. Now, that might not be applicable for a variety of reasons. I think the information that the mayor presented tonight should be vetted by the school committee because I do believe that's a strong component. But at the end of the day, let's line all that up at the end when we vote on May 9th, or if we have to extend it to get all the information, because I think we can extend it for really in July so they can have it in August. If we can do it on May 9th, let's have an up or down vote on the facts. Let's have these 4 options compete. Let's just do that. Let's not get into the semantics of we can't have Cawley, we can't have downtown. We have to have all these options compete. I'm going around in a circle because I don't want to get into the financials now, but I think we have to, and on May 9th we're going to. And then it'll be what it'll be at that point in time. So I am going to support this because I think we need to have the 4 options compete and to make a good decision for the entire city.
Thank you, Councilor Elliott.
Seems like a no-brainer to me, quite frankly. We've been talking about this and everybody in the city council has discussed the fact that we should keep 4 options in play. That's the requirements. Let's do that we can. People want to flip-flop, that's up to them. Then the voters we can make their decision. But under no circumstances, Mr. Manager, I don't think that you did anything wrong after we met with EOEAA. In fact, I was at the meeting. And maybe the mayor should have been at the meeting because they were very clear, as well as the state legislature. Please, get the language down to us as soon as we can. Make it flexible, but make sure that there are not going to be those in the legislature that can object to it. At the same time, concurrently, get us the replication plan. But don't waste time in getting this in motion with the legislature. So I'm confused with the point that the mayor is trying to make. We're sending down plans to replicate. That's what they wanted. It's a very confusing process, both at the State House and here, and I think we're doing the right thing. And delaying the vote last week just delayed another week, and I don't think it sends a good message. One of the other issues that we have heard consistently at school building committee meetings and from our architects and engineering consultants, SBA looks at what's going on. They want us to take votes on finances. They want you to send down options that are not going to create a problem moving forward. And by delaying it even further, you need to absolve the option 4. It needs to have this vote in order to show the SBA that it's a viable option. It's all about viable options. So the fact we don't want to all of a sudden send get caught at a point where, yeah, we send the legislation down and then EOEEA says, that's not good enough. So working at the same time makes sense. And I had full faith that we're going to do that, having attended the meeting. So, it's just moving the goal line further, in my opinion. And I agree with Mr. Nelson. I think he deliberated pretty well and recapitulated the entire process. It seems like there's one obstacle after the other. If you oppose it, fine. Let's just put the option, just be fair, open, and honest in this debate. Not that it's Article 97. Okay, we're going to solve that tonight, I believe. And then it's busing. We have a solution to busing. I mean, if people are truly committed to putting 4 options up there, why are there all these roadblocks? It's not a coincidence. People are intelligent. They know. They can tell. They watch. People watch it on television. They read the newspapers. So just be straight up. If you don't support it, then just vote against it. But let's not say I'm for it and then all of a sudden find a reason to hang a hat on. So I'm going to support this article. I think it makes sense moving forward. And again, more information. A $40 to $50 million gap now. I guess it just continues to grow and grow, and nobody knows outside of what we have in front of us. And then that number is going to be more finite as we move forward and we get the information, hopefully in a month. So I urge my colleagues to support this and keep this option in play as the process warrants. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Councilor. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'm just flabbergasted by this outburst of what took place here. It's a case of damned if you do, damned if you don't. We started out in the beginning asking for 4 options because EEOA, BCD, whatever it is, asked for it, and that's just what we intended to do. Then we found that there was a restriction, and this Article 97, be that as it may. I think that, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, you're trying to do everything that we're asking for. Tonight we're going to vote on this. Hopefully it passes. But everywhere you go, there's an obstacle. Option 4 isn't a fair option that is being sent. It's saddled with obstacles, as you have said, Mr. Manager. I'm just so bewildered as to why every time you turn around, there's another roadblock in here. And just because you sent the replication plan of the different parks forward, we should have voted on it. You only did what we asked you to do. We asked you to try to make this work so we have 4 viable options. To me, it's just a matter of fairness, and some people evidently want to delay, if there was another way to delay tonight, I think that would happen. But I'm thinking that we're all trying to get to the same page. Well, some of us are anyway. The objection was Rule 29. Who would have known it was Rule 29? I wonder what other rules could be quoted and know the number, but objected because the Spanish and Khmer people were going to attend a meeting. What about the people at the CNAG, Centerville Neighborhood Action Group? Sanska and Perkins Eastman were supposed to attend CNAG, and they never showed up. So we're not concerned about them, but we're just concerned about others. I don't know. It just gets worse and worse as we go along. There's no unity here. I'm just simply asking for a matter of fairness to send 4 viable options down. And at the same time, we're trying to put the pieces together to replicate and follow the orders so that it becomes fair. I don't know how to say it any different than that, but I hope that we can all get on the same page and try to make it fair all the way around. And then whatever the council votes, which option that is, we should stick with that and try to help and work it. But I think people that support Carly should be treated much fairly than they've been treated right along, and I think that's what I'm asking for.
Councilor Malinazzo.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. First of all, I was prepared to vote in favor of moving this home rule petition along this evening, but based upon some thoughts that I've had sitting here for the last half hour and listening to some of the speakers, I've decided to vote no. I've decided to vote no, in part because I really do truly believe it's been an open and transparent process. And I also, just so everybody understands completely, that all 4 options are before MSBA. They're all down there. We're not stopping. If this does not go through, I fully expect it to go through tonight, that this has nothing to do with whether or not that option is down at the MSBA. It is. My objection, after, again, listening and reading this vote, and again, I thought it was important to get to the minority community, whether or not my colleague thinks it is or not. And listening to what was said, especially at the CMAA, where parents are concerned about not being able to walk their children to school. They're afraid that they won't be able to drop their kids off at school. Again, that's an issue for them. Whether or not it's an issue for us is really, you have to, listen to your own conscience. But the reason I'm not voting for this is because the Board of Parks meetings that we had here a month or so ago, and I'll put it this way, Mr. Manager, was not one of your finest hours. Having Commissioner Bellegarde put forward Manning Field, and that I had never seen it, and then it turns out that part of it's in Chelmsford, part of it's also subject to Article 79, 97 is an issue. So in this vote, there's a paragraph here that the Lowell City Council hereby delegates you, Mr. Manager, and had all authority over city properties, either included in this vote or otherwise, in order to advance the purpose of this vote. What happened to the Board of Parks? What happened to the Cemetery Commission? It all rests with you. So again, based upon what I saw at the Board of Parks, what happened after the Board of Parks vote, when, in my opinion, only one member of the Board of Parks did their job, and his name's been splattered out all over the media. So John Linehan did not do his job, in my opinion. Ryan Rourke did not do his job, in my opinion. Thomas Contra did not do his job.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. This has nothing to do with Article 97 again.
It does. This was before them. Mayor,
The vote is on Article 97, not the Board of Parks.
This was before them. So I'm just saying that, based upon that meeting, based upon this language in the vote, putting all the authority with this administration, I can't support it.
Thank you. Councilor Samaras?
Thank you. Thank you. Well, there's a lot of discussion here. In regard to the vote tonight, I intend to vote for Article 97 because I think, like all of us, we have a different approach to this, but we all want to see all 4 options vetted out and brought to the table so they can be discussed. I think, Mr. Manager, what some of the problems that's happened with this, with Article 97, other issues, when a program of this, what I've found in my history is a program like this magnitude, there are many problems that do come out. And I think what happened at the beginning when Skanska was going out and making their presentations, there was a lot of misinformation given out, not so much intentionally, but there were approximation. Today we need modules, tomorrow we don't need modules. So if you're looking at people, the citizens here in Lowell looking at the issue, what's true? It was true today, it's not true tomorrow. So it's created some problems. There has been some very animated discussion here tonight, but I think in the long run, this is my own feeling, rather than us getting upset at this situation, I think what this is going to do is help us get to the situation, address the issues, because I think every councilor has the right to bring his or her thoughts to the table, and I think the more we look into this situation, the more we attack the situation, the more information we seek from you, the more reactions that the more times we go to you and say, can you correct that information? Mr. Nelson, when he was given his presentation, was correcting the thing. If you're a citizen and you're looking at this process, you might question it. And I've been bothered in the fact at many of the meetings where people have stated, what is going on? What are the politicians doing? I don't feel that we're politicians. I really feel that we're a city council that has a big job in front of us, and that's to give this city a great high school. I think everybody sitting down here wants to do that, and most certainly the audience that's here. I mean, I see a lot of people that constantly at these meetings. They're giving up a lot of time to be at these meetings. that really means they care. And I think we care, but sometimes we show how we care in different fashions. And I guess I'm just using my age in the sense of, I've been through so many fights in my life in the school department, so many battles. But I know one thing, that in many of the battles that we dealt, even though we had such different opinions, I never questioned the person I was battling's thoughts of trying to do the right thing. I think we're all trying to do the right thing, but we have a different avenue. So I think tonight really has, we'll say, opened up the spigot, so to speak, Mr. Manager, in a sense of there's a certain amount of information we need to get. We need to do it in a timely fashion, and we need to have it accurate. And I think now with the studies that the companies are doing, you will get that information. And Mr. Manager, when we talk about price, I mean, even now, until a company comes in and makes a bid, we don't know the actual costs. But will we be able to have better costs when when they're doing their research in the buildings and they ascertain what type of asbestos or what type of problems are in the downtown, what type of problems are out at Colley Stadium? Because there'll be problems on all sites. Do you think, will we get better figures to be able to deal with this issue?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, there will be much better figures when the feasibility study is complete.
I think that's important. And then when you talk about the busing costs and things like this, that's one thing you can give an accurate picture to. I think the costs are gonna be high, but the issue is, the one thing is, I'm not fearful of the costs, I just want to know what the costs are. So when we speak to our constituents, we can talk about what's right. And the one thing I want to do, make sure, when it comes to this high school, my problem is that I've been in the school department for so long, I saw what happened in 1980. They had unbelievable plans of what they were going to do in 1980. And there was cost cutting, till they chopped it up and we got what we got. And it wasn't pleasant. In 1997, we had a $40 million renovation, and right off the bat, because of, we'll say, not great research, $6 million was needed just to cover some of the problematic costs. I think because we've hired an OPM, we've hired the right type of companies, I think the type of information we get today is better, and I hope with the better information that we can do a better job. I'm not trying to truck around this. All I want to say and end it by saying, this is a good city council, it's good administration, we're trying to do the right thing. We're going to get mad at each other and doing the right thing because all of us have a different approach. The people here, they've given up a lot of their time. The audience here, they've given up, and they're seriously invested in doing this. I think all of us have many conversations with many of the people that are sitting here. And I've always walked away going home and saying, to my wife, this is unbelievable. I mean, I agree with this, disagree with that, but boy, I'm excited by the fact that they want the best high school we can. So I think the tone should calm down a little bit, and what we should be doing is now taking the vote here, and then, Mr. Manager, help us out by ensuring that the type of information we want can get to us in a timely fashion. It's going to come into you very fast, but we need to get that information. And I guess I'm saying to you, get it out as quickly as you can, but also monitor it as best you can to assure us that when we give that information out, it's kind of accurate or it's in the ballpark. Do you understand? You know what I'm saying, Mr. Manager? It helps us all. So I think we're doing the right thing. I think everybody here wants to do the right thing. I think we just have to calm it down a level.
Thank you, Councilor. Anything else? Councilor Belanger?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I want to commend Councilor Samaras for sort of being a voice of reason here tonight, because he's made some great points. And one thing that bears mentioning, of all this that's going on, not only with this council, the public is very, very engaged and invested time-wise. There's no two ways about it. But, there's one thing that I haven't heard yet from the taxpayer is, no, we don't want this. So that is a testament to the taxpayers alone, the citizens, how committed they are to their city and education. So that is a very positive element that has not come up yet to this point. So With that being said, Mr. Vice Mayor, through you to the manager. Now, Mr. Manager, you've done nothing wrong, okay? You did what this council instructed you to do time and time again, to keep Colley Stadium on the table as a viable option, and to, at the request of the EEA, to vet potential acreage in the event we need to replicate open space in the event Colley Stadium is selected, and that's what you did. You've done nothing wrong, in my opinion. And nor do I think it's a good idea to talk about finances right now based on estimations. We have no idea what they're going to come in at, okay? I was just with, over the weekend, one of the most distinguished Lowell High graduates, a name we know very well, I will leave unmentioned, who seems to think that the downtown's probably going to come in higher. I don't know. It's just another opinion. I want to wait till everything is on the table, all the facts, how much transportation is going to cost, each site costs, then we can make a decision. Okay, right now it's hearsay, speculation, and estimations, okay? That's not good enough, okay? So there's no need to get into finances at this point. But I do intend supporting Article 97 for the sake, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, for the sake of options. We're all talking about 4 options, yes, but that's only at 2 locations. And I will be perfectly honest, if it were up to me, there would be 4 options with 3 locations on the table, including South Common. Okay, South Common was a site that is viable. Yes, it has Article 97 restrictions attached to it, okay, but would be a perfect compromise in this situation and was dismissed far too easily, okay? But here we are. I was defeated along with Council Leahy, and you have to know when you're defeated and move on. But that site was overlooked, and here we are, okay? Centrally located. It answers a lot of problems in the event that something could go wrong at other locations. We don't know. We have environmental studies. We have site costs. There are unknowns to each location. This would have been a nice, viable option to have on the table as we go forward. But unfortunately, it's too late, okay? So, but for tonight, what we have on the table is Article 97 to keep Colley alive, and I intend on doing that, okay? Because it is a viable site, and it deserves to be there. I believe it's the will of many of the taxpayers, and it's the will of this council up till tonight. Okay, so with that being said, Mr. Vice Mayor, I do intend on supporting it tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. So with regards to a vote on special legislation relative to Article 97, a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Larry, second by Councilor Elliott. Mr. Clerk, roll call.
Counselor Samaras.
Yes.
Counselor Belanger.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
No.
Counselor Leahy.
Yes.
Counselor Leary.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Counselor Milonazo.
No.
Counselor Rourke.
Yes.
That's 7 yeas.
The next item before us is a communication from Jim Peters, resigning from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Do we have a motion to accept we have a motion
Move
by
approval.
Council Mercy to accept the resignation, seconded by Council Elliott. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next, we have a communication from the city manager requesting out-of-state travel for 3 members of the Lowell Police Department. We have a motion approved by Councilor Milonazo, seconded by Councilor Rourke. Discussion. Roll call.
Counselor Samaras.
Yes.
Counselor Belanger.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Leahy.
Yes.
Counselor Leary.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Counselor Milonazo.
Yes.
Counselor Rourke.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have a vote to endorse the MSBA Preliminary Design Program Capital Budget Statement. If there's no objection, we'll waive the full first reading, go to the second reading, authorizing the endorsement of the City of Lowell's Massachusetts School Building Authority's Preliminary Design Program Capital Budget Statement. Do we have a motion to approve? Motion approved by Councilor Rourke, seconded by Councilor Samaras. Discussion, roll call.
Counselor Samaras.
Yes.
Counselor Belanger.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Leahy.
Yes.
Counselor Leary.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Counselor Milonazo.
Yes.
Counselor Rourke.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Next, we have Order from the city manager for a 60-day trial at various locations. If there's no objection, we'll waive the full first reading, go to the second reading pursuant to Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances in the City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 266-6 thereof, entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations. Temporary traffic regulations are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days. Do we have a motion to approve? By Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Samaras. Discussion, roll call.
Counselor Samaras.
Yes.
Counselor Belanger.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Leahy.
Yes.
Counselor Leary.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Counselor Milonazo.
Yes.
Counselor Rourke.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, under subcommittee reports, I don't think we have anything. And so we'll move on to council motions. The first motion of the evening is by Councilor Milonazo. Request that the city manager provide a report to the city council regarding trash fines collected over the past 12 months per the city ordinance. Seconded by Councilor Leahy. Councilor Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All of us have been getting calls from folks that live in some of our multifamily, more densely populated neighborhoods that trash barrels are being left out, the recycling barrels are being left out. Sometimes they're being put out a couple of days early before the trash pickup. So I'm just wondering if we're actually following up and doing inspections and finding the landlords in this particular case, because the neighborhoods, like I said, are more the multifamily. So I'm just looking for a report to see how we're implementing and following the city ordinance. Thank you.
Councilor Leary.
No, I think this is an excellent motion. I think we're all getting the phone calls regarding it, and it's something that we need to keep up on. And I think I applaud Councilor Milonazo for bringing it to everybody's attention, because you can drive down any, like not any street, but a lot of streets, and you're seeing this. And this is becoming a problem. You're seeing trash that's actually getting outside the bins as well. So I think it's a timely motion, and a quick response, I think, is imperative. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion of the evening is by Councilor Elliott. Requested the city manager provide a list of vacancies of boards and commissions. Seconded by Councilor Belanger. Councilor Elliott.
Mr. Manager, do you think it's possible we can get a quarterly update? Because all of us can, we get, I know there are vacancies, and I know there are holdovers, and people just ask, they want to get involved, and it's good, and I don't want to be a broken record. I know I brought this up in the past, but maybe a quarterly report, either, is it through you or you, Mr. Clerk, that tracks, because you swear them in, but it's the manager. I'm sorry, Mr. Manager,
We're actually having a meeting next week to sit down so that we're going to post them on our website now, what vacancies are available, so people can go right on the website and see.
that is great, because I know other communities do that, or they post them, they put an ad in the newspaper if it's a very small community. Great, thank you. The motion's been answered, so that's great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilor Mercer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd be very curious to know if you could also add when their term expires. I'm very concerned about that.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion of the evening is by Councilor Elliott. Requested the city manager provide a report regarding the Change for Change initiative relative to panhandling. Seconded by Councilor Belanger. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion essentially speaks for itself. I'm curious how it is made out and whether we gotta market it or, whether, there's still some panhandlers out there, and maybe it's the weather or not, I'm not sure, but I'm not sure. Do we see a reduction in the number of panhandlers, or is it just that it's cold?
I think it's just cold. We had that standout, but
Yeah.
we still have other things that we have to do, and we'll be starting that now that the good weather is here.
Okay, thank you. I think it's been mentioned in the past, they're out there because people have kind hearts and they do give to people. So it is a good program, and there are other means, but, okay, that's it. Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I think it's a good motion. But through you, Mr. Mayor, to the manager. Now, Mr. Manager, are we getting the message out? Because the message here is very clear and I believe very strong that, we're not encouraging that you do not give to help people, but to give to the proper outlets that are appropriate, to the food bank, to the Transitional Assistance Living Center, to whatnot. And I think that's a very good message to send, that Lowell's not saying don't give, it's saying give to the proper rather than give to the individuals, where sometimes you can be enabling these individuals for drugs, alcohol, and whatnot. So how are we doing on that front? Are we going to be ramping up those efforts as well?
No, we'll be ramping up those efforts. We need to. It was interesting, when we had the standout, people were trying to give us money. They didn't even realize we were saying, don't give people money. So it is an interesting dynamic. but
Because of the suit you wore, Mr. Manager, your suit.
Yes.
That's right.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Any further discussion? Mr. Manager, please let us all know when next time you go. We'll all go along and get some.
That's not a bad idea to put as part of the job description, Mr. Manager.
The next motion is by Council Elliott and Council Leahy. Requested the City Council vote to lift parking restrictions in downtown on weekends. Needs no second. Council Leahy.
Thank you. I wanted to change the vote to revisit, so I don't know what happened with that, but basically what I wanted to see with Council Elliott is to revisit the parking restrictions on the weekend. I think we heard from a few downtown businesses this weekend, and I think for the most part it's working downtown, but I'd just like to take a look at the whole parking picture for the weekend throughout the city where the meters are. So, thank you.
So are you looking to send this to a subcommittee then, or?
I suppose we could wait for the recommendations from the manager first and then see.
So I make,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry,
Councilor Elliott.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. So I make the motion to amend, or to make a motion to amend and strike the word vote and revisit and get a report on parking restrictions downtown. That was my mistake. It shouldn't say vote. I didn't expect, I don't know why I thought that we weren't going to vote tonight on it, but I think it makes some sense to take a look at it. There are some instances where there's a funeral, Saturday morning at Immaculate Conception Church, and people get tickets. I mean, that's not the intent. I know the intent was so people wouldn't be parking overnight downtown, or for the weekend, quite frankly, if you have a parking space or you live downtown. And that is an impediment to people coming downtown if they can't find a spot. But I am also concerned that we don't want to scare people away. People don't like to pay to park. I get it. They don't like, but it's if that's something that we can, it's an incentive to people. You want them to come downtown, but we don't want to be handing out parking tickets because that turns people right off, in my opinion. So I know it's a delicate situation where we can't have people parking overnight all weekend, but we also want people to come downtown and not have to worry about getting a parking ticket. So I don't know if we do it by zones or what, but people getting parking tickets after funeral didn't sit well with me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, if there's no objection, the city clerk will just change the language of the motion to
Okay.
reflect the changes that you spoke about. Council Belanger?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was done about 2 years ago, where the council looked at the entire parking ordinance and decided to enforce the ordinance as it is written. We're only enforcing until 4 p.m. Weekdays and no weekends, which was allowing residents who were downtown. And with that being said, there are many, many positives to having the amount of residents downtown that we do. No two ways about it. However, this would allow them to sit on the street nights till the next morning's day of work, and literally Friday afternoon till Monday morning. And it was going on at a pretty rampant rate, as was expressed by many small business owners after several downtown meetings, that this was going on. So I would not, if it were a vote, I would not be supporting to alleviate Saturday afternoons. I think that would be harmful to businesses. I know Councilor Elliott mentioned a good point. People don't want to pay to park, but at least there's spots open now to park, when it was very scarce on Saturdays prior to. We've already heard from downtown business owners, Andy from Brood Awakening, number one, saying it has improved. Downtown neighborhood leaders support it as is. I think that says a lot, and I just want to disclose that I am formerly a downtown businessman. I am no longer a businessman, but I was in the trenches. I know what's best for them, and I think to leave things alone is what's best to them. And not only that, it's not that we did it for revenue, we did it to help businesses, but it has, it raises revenue about $300,000 per year, I'm told, by Parking Director Nick Neighbor. So I think what needs to be done is maybe some zone parking, as Councilor Elliott mentioned, and we need to incentivize garages, okay? No, There's plenty of room nights and weekends in the garages. The problem is, nobody wants to go in them, okay? So they need to be incentivized. This is what I had in mind by increasing the enforcement hours, where you're gonna get more in the parking meters, so we could afford to reduce parking garage rates, and that never happened, okay? So that needs to happen, okay? So we need to look at that. Weekend rates should be cheaper to incentivize and to get people off the street. I don't know how many times I've said it, but, okay? So that's what needs to get done. So I look forward to the response and possibly sending this to a subcommittee for further discussion, but I do not think we should be stopping enforcement on Saturdays. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? Councilor Elliott.
Can we just, Mr. Manager, it's not part of the motion, but could we also look at other communities and what they do on Saturdays and if they ticket on Saturdays? I mean, I understand the point. I firmly just don't believe that is a good message, that we ticket and that we enforce on the weekends. The city of Boston doesn't do it on the weekends, so, you know, that's unless, but in any event. John got a ticket on Saturday. I stand corrected.
Ticket on a Sunday.
So Sundays, it's off. Okay, can we just look at other communities? I hope you paid your ticket.
Okay, Councilor Leahy.
Yep, I just want to add, these are all good discussions. I just want to, when we get the report, we'll take a look at it and send it to the subcommittee. But when the parking attendants retire for the day, you know, I've driven through downtown early Saturday or Sunday morning, there's still cars parked. So, you know, we have to discuss when we're writing the tickets and where and how. And I did get a ticket in Boston on a Sunday when I was in there working. So they ticket round the clock, but, so that's something we just need to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We don't ticket on Sunday in Lowell. We do ticket on Saturday. Could we have a figure of what revenue we've generated from just ticketing on Saturdays, if that's possible?
That's $300,000, Councilor Mercia.
Just on
per year.
Saturday?
Just on Saturdays.
$300,000. How many cars are illegally parked on Saturday?
Not every Saturday.
It's really $500,000. That's revenue.
I don't mean all week long.
Oh,
I just want
day.
to-
Just
Saturday.
That's what I'm told, Councilor Mercia, just Saturdays, yes.
Saturday?
It adds up.
Well, I mean, if people are going to a funeral mass, I don't expect them to come out and be ticketed. I mean, that's kind of hurtful, isn't it? It's bad enough they're mourning the death of their loved one, and now they're coming out to a ticket? That's cruel. That's downright cruel.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor? All opposed? So voted. The next motion is by Councilor Samaras, Councilor Leahy, and Councilor Leary. Request that the city manager of the proper department repair potholes on June Street. In addition, provide a timeline for repaving on June Street going towards the Robinson School. Councilor Samaras.
Thank you. We all attended the Centerville Neighborhood Association meeting, and that was brought up. The motion speaks for itself, but we were shown pictures of the area, Mr. Manager, going into the Robinson School, but down June Street. The potholes need to be looked at right now, but it's a street that definitely needs to be put on the watch list to be done over. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Councilor. Request that the city manager provide the city council with the 2017-2018 budget presentation timeline. Second by Councilor Leahy. Councilor Leary.
It speaks for itself. I know at the high school is a very exciting topic, but budget's going to be even more exciting, so thank you.
All in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next is a motion by Councilor Leary. Request the city manager review the use of cameras at city park locations. Second by Councilor Leahy. Councilor Leary.
This one I hesitated. I mean, we spoke about it last week a little bit. We had some folks were talking about people sleeping overnight in parks, which is obviously a homeless issue that we continue to need to be better at. But it's something where folks are waking up when they're trying to go in the morning with their kids to different parks and seeing folks sleeping on different, pieces of equipment. I just think, is it feasible, is it something that makes sense? I know when we get the cameras, they're gonna be able to be rotated around, so I don't know if we need permanent cameras, but just to look at areas that we have that are challenges. I know, it'd be surprising some of the parks, that you see it in, where there's small parks to large parks. It seems to be a variety everywhere, not just the South Common that we spend a lot of time speaking about. These are other neighborhoods throughout the city, and all parts of the city that have this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Council Belanger. Request that the city manager update the city council regarding the city's financial outlook after approval of bonding for the Lowell High School project. Seconded by Council Elliott. Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It certainly has been an interesting process, this whole high school, as it has become a contentious debate, as you can see. But there's a certain group that's been almost forgotten throughout this, okay? And that's the taxpayers, okay? They're the ones flipping the bill. It's been mentioned, but there needs to be a heavy concentration. While we sort of have a little lull in information right now. Right now, we're waiting for feasibility studies, environmental studies, cost analysis, transportation costs. So while we're waiting, the manager and his administration could take a good look at the financial outlook of the city of Lowell and our ability to, our bonding capacity, if you will, to finance other capital projects that this city is going to need. Police station, DPW facility, just to name a few. Okay, so yes, I'm saying we need a new high school, absolutely. We can't afford not to have a new high school, absolutely. But what are our finances looking like after we approve and vote for that bond? What are our capabilities? We need to do this, but we also need to do it in a responsible manner where we're not financing the city's future. Because much more needs to be done. As magnitude, how epic this decision is going to be. There are other things that need to be addressed. So, Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager, I think I made myself clear what I'm looking for in this motion. We need to know that going into it. That's just as important as all this other information that's forthcoming, is our bonding capacity once we do this. So I look forward. I know I don't think I'm going to see this next week or the week after. It's probably going to be a timely response, and that is fine. I just want everything looked at so we get an estimation of our capacity and our ability and our finances after we bond for this project, Mr. Mayor. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilor Elliott.
So, Mr. Baldwin, you already provided that to us, right? It's the debt service, it's debt exclusion, it's what's coming off, what's coming on, as well as the capital plan by fiscal year, correct?
We've provided a number of scenarios in the past, and in the budget, we update the forecast. We'll certainly be happy to update it again based on
I'm looking at the email you sent to us, so maybe you can resend it, but I think this is important, that there's no objection to the maker of motion that, that we forward this to a finance subcommittee if, well, I think we already have. But I've scheduled one for Monday at 5:30 to discuss. Is that all right, Councilor Larry? So there's one for Monday anyway, and if there's no objection, I'd like to forward this, the information that we received for that discussion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Belanger.
Yeah, I'll second Councilor Elliott's motion and support it. But no, Connor Baldwin did not answer my question, what I'm looking for, okay? We need, to clarify to Councilor Elliott, maybe he didn't hear me, a police station and a DPW facility are in our future, okay? And what it's gonna be, our capabilities to that point. So that has not been answered by Connor Baldwin. So I look forward to it, and I will support Councilor Elliott's motion to the Finance Subcommittee. Thank you.
Okay, we have a substitute motion to refer this motion to the Finance Subcommittee, seconded by Councilor Leary. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, all opposed, so voted.
Sorry, I got it. Yeah. This motion of the evening by Mayor Kennedy. Request city manager have the proper department install a street light in the vicinity of 5th West 10th Street. second by Councilor Mercia. Mayor Kennedy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This motion is by request, and the reason for the request is that it's very dark on that street. Dark to the point where the person that called me about this request was complaining that there were people sitting on their front stairs shooting up. And they did that because it was a real dark portion of the street. So if we could get a street light up around there, that probably would prevent that type of activity from continuing going forward. Thank you.
Anything else? All those in favor? Motion passes. 7.10 by Mayor Kennedy. Request city manager to consider providing municipal funding for the Jack Kerouac Festival in October. Second by Councilor Milonazo. Mayor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Recently, I had the opportunity to meet with the Jack Kerouac Committee, which puts on the festival every fall, and that festival has probably not been as high profile as it once was. There are other festivals that the city contributes to financially throughout the course of the year. And so, I was just looking to see if there could be some financing for the Jack Kerouac Festival. I really think the Jack Kerouac Festival that we could be a lot more prominent than what it is, and even if they just use the money for marketing, that's a festival that could be that could draw a lot of people from outside the city. And I think that we're whatever we can do to try to enhance that opportunity, I think is worthwhile.
Thank you. Councilor Samaras.
No, I just want to give my support. I mean, Mayor Kennedy is absolutely correct. I think when any of us go out of the city or out of the state or out of the country and you meet people and you say you're from Lowell, probably one of the first statements that you'll be given is, that's the home of Jack Kerouac, And we really have done very little to sustain that type of thinking in this city. And I think this would be a very good beginning to have the city work with that committee and see what we could do to really enhance the image of Jack Kerouac and Lowell. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. All those opposed, all those in favor, motion passes. Next motion of the evening by Mayor Kennedy. Request city manager consider establishing a translation bureau in the lobby of City Hall on Tuesdays in order to provide interpreters in Spanish, Khmer, Portuguese, and any other relevant language. Second by Councilor Samaras. Mayor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Recently, I had an opportunity to meet with this Latino group, and during the course of that discussion, what came to mind was that if you don't speak English, you really, you have no reason to come into City Hall because there's nobody here that speaks your language. And although in certain departments, there's probably people that do speak other languages, you'd have to go looking for them. And so it would be, and I've gone into other town halls and city halls throughout a lot of the Commonwealth, and a lot of times they'll have a little table right when you come in with a little ambassador that will kind of just direct you where you want to go. And so this would be a little bit different. Maybe a translation bureau is a little bit overstated in terms of what we're looking for here. But if we could get maybe even students from the high school that were fluent in those languages to come in and just try it on a Tuesday on a pilot program basis. And maybe if people knew that, if they came in and if there was somebody that could walk around with them to the departments and translate for them, that would make, I think, City Hall be a lot more functional for people who do not speak English.
Councilor Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. This sort of pertains to the motion, slightly off topic, if I may, Mr. Vice Mayor, through you to the manager. Mr. Manager, just as a reminder, just last week I was approached by a constituent who has a family member who watches the meetings and they are hearing impaired. So can you do a communication to LTC about what we can do about the hearing impaired to view the meetings, a caption of some sort on the bottom anyway, because that's a big concern. So it sort of relates to Councilor Kennedy's motion in one sense, but that would be a big help, Mr. Manager. I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, are the meetings closed captioned nowadays?
Yes, they are.
Oh, they are? Okay, maybe it's just individuals' television capabilities or something. Okay, all right. I'll let them know that. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Samaras.
Thank you. No, I support this motion. I think it's a very good motion. but Mayor Kennedy did allude to it. Mr. Manager, I think if you worked with head of school Martin, I think you could get a whole group of students throughout the day and even volunteer on a Tuesday night to come here. And I think you could have at least 4 or 5 languages represented in City Hall. I think when word got out to in regard to that, I think more people would be inclined to use the services of City Hall. So that's my suggestion. Thank you.
Council Leahy and Council Leary.
I'm also, I just wanted to mention, I'm pretty sure we have a closed caption for the meeting, so, but we'll check into that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council Leary.
Just a quick, and I may be missing this, but on our website, just kind of, it's an excellent motion, by the way. On our website, do we have any like different services in different languages? I don't know if that's ready yet, or that's something we anticipate in the future, especially the agenda for different, not only the council, but the different commissions and what have you. It's not the same thing as the motion, but it's kind of in the same framework of it. Thank you.
Councilman Nazzo.
Thank you. It is a good motion, but just quickly, during the day at my day job, we just actually instituted a language line, and it's relatively inexpensive. And you can, again, any language, anybody that comes through the door, they have the ability to work with an intake person or go to any department and work with folks, and it's relatively inexpensive. So just another suggestion. But I think it's a good idea to having, volunteers here, especially on a Tuesday. Thanks.
Thank you. All those opposed, all those in favor, motion passes. Final motion of the evening by Mayor Kennedy. Request city manager consider and report to the council on the feasibility of having the city of Lowell participate in the Clean River Project. Second by Councilman Nazzo. Mayor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Recently, the city manager and I had an opportunity to meet with people from the Clean River Project, and they've been going to communities up and down the river. I think that everybody on the city council appreciates the fact that the Merrimack River is important for the city of Lowell and always will be. And what they've asked for is that each of the communities, regardless of their size or the amount of frontage that they have along the river, that they each contribute $18,000 a year for the cleanup, which would be done in 2 ways. They've got these special trash boats that pick up debris, but they also put a boom across the river that catches debris going down. And during the course of the meeting, one of the things that I suggested to them is that it's great for Massachusetts to do that, but it also would be good if they could get up to New Hampshire and get them to participate as well. But anyways, that's what this motion's about, is just, it seems to me that if other communities, and I think Methuen and Haverhill and other communities have already signed up for this, that, Lowell is the largest of the communities along the river. We're not being charged, the fee is not weighted, everybody's got the same flat fee of $18,000, and I certainly think it's worthwhile.
Thank you. Council Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I think this is a good motion, Mr. Mayor. This organization, Rocky Morrison, they've been doing this for years and years, and he started out doing it, by himself, and then it has grown. I don't know. They've taken thousands of tons of trash out of the Merrimack. So I think it's worthy of us to look into somehow. I guess they're getting appropriations from many communities, but what they're doing, and you probably don't see it, they take thousands of hypodermic needles out of the river, or syringes, if you will, and I think just it's something that we should look into and try to support this. In addition to boats and cars and tires and all this other stuff, I think it's worthy knowing that they continue to capture these syringes, and they're talking thousands, which, that's the bottom line. But it's 13 years they've been a nonprofit, and they go out and I'm just looking right now. They've taken 73 vehicles, 8,000 tires, batteries, transmission fluid, et cetera. So I think it's a good motion, something that we should look into and collaborate with other communities, and look forward to the report. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Anything else? All those opposed, all those in favor, motion passes. That completes the motion part of the agenda. Announcements?
One quick announcement.
Councilor Leahy.
So on the closed caption, I guess we only do that on the live broadcast, and it doesn't go out on the replays. So we'll just check that out for the, And then one other thing, Mr. Manager, it's not so much an announcement, but could we just make sure, we got a couple of emails about making sure everybody has proper ID when they're on these site visits, either at Cawley or downtown, just so they have proper badges, I guess. We've gotten some emails that people are doing their job, walking around the high school or Cawley Stadium without proper signage or badge, so, thank you.
Thank you, Council. Anything else? Just quick announcement, tomorrow evening, 7 p.m. here at the council chambers, the topic of busing that was talked about this evening will be presented by Mr. Dakota to the school committee, subcommittees. That's tomorrow night here, 7 o'clock. Anything else? Motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn, Mayor Kennedy? Second by Councilor Samaras. Good night.